Okay, today is yoga for stress. Nice, gentle staying down on the mat class, especially today. We're really going to take it slow. And we're going to think about spring cleaning. So the theme of the week is the niyama, purification, clarity, cleanliness. So we're going to think about being clean and clear and fresh. So just thinking about moving some fresh energy throughout our body and focusing on a whole body experience. So we're going to start down on our backs and we're going to be here for a while. So get comfy. So start down on your back. Take a moment to really land the hips on the ground, get the feet, the knees, and the legs comfortable. Try not to overly flatten the natural curves of your back. Wiggle around so you feel like you have that natural soft curve in your low back. Not flattening, pushing your pelvis down and flattening your low back. Let the curve be present. Watch for your neck. Let the curve in your neck be present. Maybe even feeling with our fingertips what's going on in our neck. Moving our fingertips around, noticing this space. So many of us hold so much of our tension, our day-to-day worries right here in our neck and shoulders. So take your fingertips around, give a little tippy taps with your fingertips in this space. Really starting to think about our shoulders, the muscles of the neck, maybe a little right up at the base of the skull. So where the skull meets the neck, around the base of the skull. Tippy tap your fingers around this space. Notice what is present. And you can find two little notches either side of your spine on the base of your skull. See if you can find them. Place your fingers here and make little circles right in this space. Start to close your eyes if that's comfortable with you, for you. Start to really land in this space. Really, really, really being present with whatever is present here. So maybe we have a little inflammation, starting to be allergy season if you're with us in the East Coast, the U.S. And maybe you're starting to get some drips. Maybe you have some inflammation from stress. Just noticing. Move your fingers around. Start to feel what is present. And you can stay with little circles with your fingers here. Start to pull your fingers down either side of your spine. So not on your spine, left and right of your spine, all the way down into your shoulders. So pull down. You can press as hard as it feels right for you. Moving your fingers down. Making some space. Really grabbing and feeling this space. Then let your head land on the ground. Take your fingertips to your torso and just move your chin around a little. See if you can loosen your neck a little more. And before we really soften in, we're going to take our fingertips. We're going to tap in around our chest. So underneath the collarbone, take little finger taps like you're walking your tapping fingers around on your chest and underneath your collarbone. Tapping around, feeling this space. I'm going to turn the sound off on my computer. Sorry about that. Otherwise it's going to get long day. So tapping around on the chest. Tapping around across the top of the shoulders. Noticing the space. Maybe even starting to really lift and tap, 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 tap. Start to notice what's going on with your breath. And then we're going to take our fingers and we're going to tap down our arm, one arm at a time. So tapping. We're just bringing sensation to our arms, tapping around, feeling our arms. Let your fingers tap Bring some sensation here. Lift your left arm up to the ceiling and really tap. And then we're going to grab the left arm and we're going to pull down with our right hand. So just pulling down, just feeling the skin. It's a light pull. Just moving as if you're bringing all the fluid, excess stress in the left arm all the way back down towards the armpit. Don't grab around the armpit, just bring it towards this space. And then you can bend the elbow on the left arm and pull down on the back of the left upper arm and the tricep space here. Just pulling with your hand, palm of your hand, pull down. Spring cleaning your body. Find your breath. Take your right arm up to the ceiling, grab with the left, and we're going to pull down on the skin. Imagine you're pulling down anything that's kind of stuck. So you can think about this scientifically, thinking about your lymphatic system. You can think about this just visually. Think about any kind of tension, any kind of holding patterns you might have, and just imagine pulling it down, getting it closer to the heart and the organs so that it can be expelled from the body, anything that we don't need. And then bend the elbow and really focus on pulling down on the upper arm space. Just mindful of around the armpit. Careful in this space. Be gentle. Pay attention to how you're feeling. Take your hands up, spread them wide, wiggle your fingers, look at your hands. Make claws with your hands, and then take really slow circles with claw hands. Looking at your hands, so noticing anything that's going on in the wrists, breathing. And then we're going to take circles from the elbows. So take your circle from the elbows, moving the lower arms in a circular pattern, trying to feel all the way our arms can move, moving through the elbow. So if this is difficult, hold on to the right arm and move the left arm first, and then switch sides. Nice slow circles. We're controlling. We're trying to feel the muscles as we move around. We're not just rolling the limb in the joint. So then take slow circles, trying to feel all the ways our elbow joint can move, noticing, connecting to our body. And then we're going to take our hands up to the ceiling. We're going to lift our shoulders, keeping our head heavy on the ground, keeping our stomach, keeping our hips and our rib cage heavy on the ground, lifting our shoulders. Pull them, pull them, pull them, pull them, as if someone was pulling your arms up, up, up. Maybe even more, even more, even more. Reach as far as they can go. And then take your hands out nice and slow with control towards the ground. Slow, slow, slow. Watch for compensation patterns. So soften your low back. Try to soften your neck. We're just trying to think about the muscles of the shoulders. Don't let the hands touch the ground. Bring them all the way back to where they were. Lift, 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 lift. Take a deep breath in, and with the exhale, you're going to sigh and imagine someone just dropped your arms. Let them land. How do you feel? Soften your eyes, close, and take a moment to ground. So really thinking about landing on your mat, landing in this body, giving yourself a promise to be present with yourself in this practice. So really try to have an experience on your mat today, noticing when your mind has run away to what you've got coming next or what has been before. And then think about the shoulders. Think about feeling your shoulder blades. Maybe giving them a little wiggle just to remind your body where you're trying to focus. And then think about pressing actively your shoulder blades down into the ground. So press only the shoulder blades. Try to keep the arms soft. Try to keep the back soft. Try to keep the stomach soft, the face soft, the neck soft. We're just pressing shoulder blades down in the ground. So press and then imagine opening. So a little press here and imagine opening. Opening in all the way into underneath the shoulders. So we're thinking about into the armpit space. So think about all the muscles that work with the shoulder blade. There are muscles in underneath from the armpit, follow the shoulder blade back. So think about this space. Internal muscles. We're going to press shoulder blades down into the ground. Think about the shape of your shoulder blades, kind of like a triangle. And think about pressing each point of your shoulder blade into the ground. And then think about being more open, as if your armpit is getting longer and more open. More space. Think about the other side of our shoulder. Shoulder is such a complicated space. So many moving parts and joints. So as we're pressing the shoulder blades down into the ground and kind of wiggling around a little and moving, notice any other muscles that seem to be talking to us. Maybe some lower back muscles. See if you can wiggle and soften them. Maybe your neck. Notice if you're gripping in your neck or your jaw. Even your face. Check on your hands. Give a really hard push of all the muscles you can find for the shoulder blades. Press down and then take a deep breath in. Squeeze as hard as you can, and then with the exhale, loosen and soften as much as possible. Bring all of your awareness to your armpits. See if you feel a little more spacious in the armpit space. We can think about our armpit space containing a lot of our immune system. So some of our immune system, our lymph nodes, are right in this space, across the neck and the chest and into the armpit. So think about being more open and free in this space, soft in this space, clean and clear. And then we're going to take our feet up. If you have a lot of trouble with your low back being tight, lifting your feet up, consider putting your feet up on a chair. We're going to hold our feet up in a place that's comfortable. We still want to be comfortable in the back. So we're going to hold our feet up wherever we can look at them and have them comfortable. So we're going to spread the toes. See if we can imagine fanning the toes out one at a time. So pull the little toe out, and then the next toe, and the next toe. We're fanning our toes out one at a time. Then squeeze them in. And then pull the toes out like you're opening wide. Imagine you can move your toes just as well as you can move your fingertips. Squeeze them in. Just pull them out one at a time. If you look at your toes, you're going to get a lot more feedback. And of course, if you don't practice this, your toes are not going to move very much, a very controlled way. The more you practice, the more control you will have. Not that this is a skill that everybody needs, but it's something to help you think about that mind-body connection. So I look at my toes, I think about moving them one at a time, and I start to connect with what it feels like in this space to isolate muscles that control something that I barely ever think about. It's a lot going on in my head, in my body. And one of the wonderful things about that is when you're focusing so hard on moving muscles in a particular way, a lot of other things are not happening. So some of those anxious thoughts can be forgotten for a little while. And then squeeze your toes, curl them in, and then press them down, open up the front of the foot, thinking about opening and stretching, lengthening the front of the foot. Point, 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 point. And then flex. Pull your toes to your shins and press the heels away from you. Send energy out through the heels. Pull the toes down. And then find a halfway point. So your foot feels like it has some action in the foot. Some muscles are active. And we're going to take very slow, controlled circles, trying to move only our feet. So try and keep these legs nice and still. Just move the feet. Maybe you hear some clicking and creaking and movement. Ooh, that was a nice crack. Go back the other way. Think about all the ways that your foot can move and think about cleaning out this space. So you're thinking about bringing energy and attention to your feet, and imagine just realigning all these little bones in our feet and our heels just by bringing our awareness here. Thinking about making some space. Hold on to the thighs, and we're going to move the lower legs in little controlled circles. So trying not to move the thighs. Take the lower legs in little controlled circles. Trying to find all the muscles below the knee. Watch for any compensation patterns anywhere else in the body. Switch the direction of your circle. Again, trying not to make this movement happen from the thighs. Thighs are the bigger, stronger muscle groups. They're going to want to do all the work. We're trying to find the muscles in the shins. Breathe. And then take the feet up, wiggle them and shake them. Shake and shake and shake and shake and shake. Loosen and soften like you're throwing a tantrum. Let everything shake and loosen. Move around, feel, have an experience. Think about getting all of that stuck energy. So anything, our heart pumps blood all the way down to our feet. It doesn't pump it back up. So thinking about bringing that blood flow back up. Shake. Maybe hold and shake. Experiencing both. And then take the feet slowly back down to the ground. Take the legs along. So land the heels on the ground. When we take our legs long, watch for pressing your legs so straight that you're pushing through the back of the knee. So try to think about a little bit of softness around the knee. Maybe pull the knee a tiny bit back up and press through the tips of the toes more. So we're not locking in around the knee joint and stopping blood flow and energy getting to the tips of our toes. We want to think about pressing down through the heels, lifting just a teeny bit through the knees and pointing through the toes. So think about sending energy all the way to the tips of the toes. Really think about sending as much fresh energy to the tips of the toes, activating as many muscles as you can find from the tips of the big toe all the way up the leg. See if you can squeeze the glutes. And then arms up overhead. Reach as long as you possibly can. Squeeze as much as you possibly can. So think about all the muscles in your body. Maybe begin to even squeeze your face. How many muscles can you find? Squeeze, 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 squeeze. What can you find? Maybe give some wiggle. See what you can find that's not engaged. Maybe you lift a heel up at a time and wiggle a little bit longer. Find your muscles. Squeeze, 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 squeeze. Reach, stretch. Open up. Take a deep breath in. Squeeze as hard as you can. And then with the exhale, soften into the ground. Notice how you feel. Take a little wiggle through the legs. Try and soften a little more through the legs and the hips. And then make a giant banana on the ground. So take your feet a little bit over to the right. Take your shoulders a little bit over to the right, making a giant banana on the ground. And we're focusing on pressing through the left heel and all the way up to the left armpit, opening up this left side body. Check in on your neck. Make sure your neck is soft and you're not pulling any tension into the neck. Breathe. Think about sending as much breath as you can in between each rib on the left side. So imagine pushing your breath through the ribs, trying to open up into those little teeny tiny muscles between the ribs. Press your breath through here. And then slowly bring your body back through center and over to the other side. So feet over to the left, shoulders over to the left. Open up right side body. Pressing through that right heel all the way up to the right armpit. Check on the neck tension and then send your breath between each rib. Nice, slow opening breaths, fresh breath. Slowly bring the body back to center. Take a little wiggle, loosen and soften, look for any tension. Bring the feet down to the ground, knees up. Feel the feet on the ground. We're going to start to move and breathe, lifting the hips. So we're going to think about lifting the hips with the muscles of our stomach and the muscles of the back of the legs and the glutes. However, leaving the shoulders and the rib cage down on the ground. So we're not taking this work all the way up into the neck. We're going to try and leave the neck soft, chin up to the ceiling, natural curve in our neck. We're really focusing in on these muscles in close to the spine on the front, pulling our hips up, and the glutes and the backs of the legs. So inhale, lift, and exhale, lower. Move with your breath. See if you can start to find even use of muscles in the front and muscles in the back. So it's going to take a lot of focus to see how many muscles you can find. Pulling through the back of the legs. Squeezing the glutes, but not only squeezing the glutes. So the glutes are a big muscle group. Notice if it's the glutes doing all the work. Try and soften them just a little so that you can strengthen through the back of the legs a little more. And then find the front of the hips. And every time you go off your mat, return to just trying to connect with sensation in these muscles. Maybe even bringing your hands to the space we're trying to use, reminding yourself where you want your focus to be. Move with your breath. Think about drawing in fresh breath, exhaling, releasing what's no longer needed. Inhale, draw in fresh. Exhale, slowly lower and release. Lower the hips. Take a little side sway of the knees and hips, just letting the body soften and reset. We are going to bring soles of the feet together. So press the soles of the feet together. Notice where you land and experiment. So experiment with bringing your feet closer to the glutes. Maybe that's more comfortable. Experiment with bringing them a little bit further away. Maybe that's more comfortable. So it depends where your holding patterns are, what the shape of the bones are in your hips. This matters a lot. So maybe you have some tension in around the knees. Definitely move your feet around slowly so that you feel a place you can rest your knees open without the tension being in around the knee joint. So you want to find the inner thighs. We're going to find the place where we can hold our legs open. So you're going to press into the soles of your feet first. So feel the feet pressing together. Start to activate the legs. Maybe start to squeeze lower inner glutes a little. Your knees are going to pop up a little because you're starting to activate muscles. So start to find the place where you can be active and nothing is hurting. So our muscles are starting to engage. We're not tweaking any joints. Soften your neck. And then we're going to squeeze our knees up and pull our knees out. So inhale as we open out. Squeeze in. Exhale. Inhale, open. Very active. It's a tiny movement. So we're trying to find inner thighs. We're trying to find outer thighs. We're trying to find glutes. And you should also feel a little connection to the very deep muscles in the stomach, not the six pack, the ones underneath. The six pack might look good, but it's not actually the one that helps us the most. So some of the muscles in underneath are so much more helpful to our day-to-day movements. We want to connect with these smaller muscles, these deeper muscles, sorry. Bring your knees to a place where you can hold. So you're not pulling out as open as you can possibly go, but you feel strong. Press the soles of your feet together and then maybe a teeny tiny lift. So you feel you're not really lifting much off. You're just feeling like you're lifting your pelvis a little. So you can squeeze and find a little more muscles. Find, squeeze, open, squeeze, press your feet together. Find some more muscles in your legs. Squeeze, 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 squeeze. Squeeze as tight as you can and then take a deep breath in, and with the exhale, lower, soften. See where you land. Notice what you feel. Take both feet back to the ground, knees up, about hip width apart. Take a little shuffle, soften and reset. We're going to take right leg up and cross the ankle, just above the ankle, underneath the left knee. So set up your base first. Notice how you feel. Start to activate the right leg. So before you pull the knee away from you, try to find the muscles in the leg first and then pull the knee away. So see what muscles you can find to activate. We're not pushing with our hand with force. We're trying to pull with our muscles. Opening up the hip, maybe a little tilt of the pelvis. See how that feels. Maybe not. Maybe press the pelvis down into the ground. See how that feels. Everybody's a little bit different how their hips work. So move around a lot with control, feeling this space. So finding a way to connect to your hip. Feel like opening and strengthening the muscles in and around the hip. Slowly release the muscles, and we're going to take the right knee in a circle. So we're going to think about the hip and all the ways the leg can move in the hip, but we're going to keep this right leg nice and slow and active. We're not flopping around in the joint. We're trying to move through this hip. Everything else stays still, just thinking about the thigh, the femur, this bone, moving around slowly in the hip joint while finding all the muscles that make this action happen. Feel the space. Take your circle very slow and controlled in the other direction. Maybe you find some points that feel a little tight. Maybe you find some points that creak and groan. Notice what is present in your hip. Land the right leg down, take a little side sway. We're going to take the left leg, cross just above the ankle, underneath the right knee. Find your base first, set up, strong left leg. So find the muscles of the leg first, and then press the knee away from you with the muscles of the legs, not with the hands. Think about pulling your hip open, maybe moving around just a little, seeing if there's a slightly better angle you can feel. Breathe. And then slowly unravel. Left knee is going to take a circle. So nice slow circle, thinking about just moving left thigh. Move around in the left hip. Feeling all the angles the thigh can move. Nice slow breath. And then reverse your circle. And then bring both knees in. Give yourself a little hook. Maybe rock it, maybe keep it still. Notice how you feel. And then bring it on over to a side and come up to tabletop position. We're going to move and breathe in our tabletop. Nice, slow. Thinking about getting into a meditative movement. So we inhale forward. We exhale back. We're trying to have an experience in the physical body. Trying to keep our mind in our physical body and on the mat. We do familiar patterns so that we have wonderful ways to know what is different when we come to our mat. So as you do this practice, moving forward and back more and more often, you get to know what's different day to day. Maybe you sleep funny and you tweak a muscle in your neck. And instead of getting all the way to the end of the day when you have a massive headache, you come to your mat and you notice right away that something feels a little off, and maybe you can move and breathe and release the tension before you get the headache. And then bring it to tabletop. We're going to do a little bit more work with the hips. So we're going to take the left leg out long. We're going to really activate the left leg. So we're pressing through the left heel. Watch for buckling around in the shoulders and the low back. Try to be a little active, steady base. We're going to take the left heel past the right leg. And then we're going to inhale, open. Exhale, squeeze past. Moving with the leg strong. If this is too intense, you can bend the knee. Inhale, pull the knee up. Exhale, pull the knee past. So we're thinking about ways that the hip can move. We're thinking about moving with a strong, active leg. Then bring the foot back even with the hip. Bend the knee. Take the heel to the ceiling. We're going to take little pulses up to the ceiling, trying to connect with the glute and the back of the leg. Press through the heel. Little pulses controlled. Take the toes down. Press through the heel. Either hold static or move around. Bring the left knee up past the right. See if you can wiggle the left foot past the right knee. Slowly squeeze. Knees back together. Pull right foot out. So land here. Press into the tops of the feet. And then sink the hips back a little. Arms forward. Maybe you can rest your head down. Press through the tops of the feet. Breathe. Think about getting really, really open through the deep muscles underneath the glutes. Breathe. Press through the tops of the feet. Slowly unravel. You're going to bring the arms back. Slowly pull left knee all the way around. And take it back to a tabletop, and we're going over to the other side. So, right leg comes out, even with the hip. Start to get active and strong. Strong in the chest, protecting your back with your stomach muscles. Hold the leg long. Take the leg past the right. Inhale as you open. Exhale as you squeeze in. So inhale, past. Exhale, squeeze in. Again, you can bend the knee if this is too intense. We're trying to find muscles in the hips and the glutes and the leg. To help keep you stable, you can imagine pressing through this left knee and the top of the left foot. Or if you have the toes tucked, through the toes. Bring the leg even with the hip, bend the knee, press heel, little pulses to the ceiling. So, moving from the glute, not the back. Move from the glute. Press the heel to the ceiling. If you want to feel this even more in the glute, what you're going to do is imagine you're pulling your pelvis just a little bit more towards the belly button. So you really hold the hips where it is and take it right into the deep glute muscles. Take the toes long, press through the heel. Slowly bring right knee all the way forward. See if you can slide right foot past the left knee. And then squeeze the knees together and press the tops of the feet down into the ground. Find the position that you can bring your hands to and lengthen. Maybe you can rest your head down. Maybe you can find a block for your head. Breathe. Think about being more and more open right up into the glute space. Soften the space, open these muscles. Send all your fresh breath right to this space. Slowly come all the way up. Unravel. Tabletop. Just going to work a little bit with the wrists. So you're going to turn left wrist fingertips towards you. Find a place where you can land your fingertips. Closer to the knee is going to be a little easier. Further away is going to be a little bit more difficult. Find the place where you can feel like you're opening the back of the wrist, but not straining or pulling into bones. So a lot of exercises that we do, if we're not careful with the alignment, we're pushing bone onto bone, and everybody's bone alignment is a little bit different. So we need to get to know our own bone structure and when we're pressing into bone and when we're opening muscles. So think about opening up the back of the wrist. So what do you do to do that? You pull the muscles of the arm up out of the ground and put a little weight into the wrist. Breathe. Slowly switch sides. Right fingertips in. And then come on up to a seated position. If you need a chair, grab a chair. Find a seat where you can have both hips even, and we're going to do a little bit of spinal movement before we come on back down to the mat. So believe it or not, we're almost there. So start to take a look in and see what's different from when we began class. Notice how you feel. And we're going to think about moving with the muscles that are close to the spine. So if you think about your spine and the vertebrae, think about them really anatomically. So you can think about seeing your vertebrae. And then imagine all the muscles that are close to the vertebrae. You don't need to think about exactly what they look like, but just imagine the muscles that pull on the vertebrae. Now we're going to think about really down low. So we're going to think about guiding our movement from our belly button. We're going to take little tiny controlled circles. So it's a teeny tiny circle. Watch for this movement coming from the low back. Watch for squeezing the glutes or really moving through the hips. We want to find these teeny tiny muscles in close to the spine. If it helps, you can imagine pulling your pelvic floor up through the spine. Give yourself a little more connection. It can also help to remind yourself by using your fingers. So bring your fingertips in around your navel and really move from this space. Teeny tiny controlled circles. Think about squeezing and flushing out this space. And then go in the other direction. And then we're going to move a little bit further up the spine. So we're going to think about moving from the solar plexus space. And again, you can bring your fingertips here just to remind yourself where you're moving from. Watch for the glutes trying to do all the work. Watch for lots of movement trying to come from the sacrum space where your spine mat hits your hips. We want it to come from the muscles really close to the spine. So think about moving little tiny circles from the solar plexus space. Still doing that nice, slow cleansing breath. And then reverse your circle, teeny tiny. Trying to connect with inner muscles of the spine. Not the six pack, not the obliques, not the low back. little tiny muscles in and around the spine. Think about belly dances. Bring your spine back to neutral. Notice how you think. Think about belly dances and how many muscles they can isolate. They can isolate one hip, pull a hip up. They can isolate little movements through the shoulders. Think about how much control you can actually get with practice with these muscles. It's all about mind-body connection. So we're trying to get that mind-body connection. So we're trying to wake up connection to some of these muscles that help our spine move. And maybe start to bring some of the focus of some of the bigger muscle groups that maybe pull the spine a little out of whack. So trying to connect to deeper muscles. We're going to think about heart space. And again, bring your hand here, maybe even the flat of your hands. You really feel a connection to this space. You can bring both hands. Doesn't matter which is on top. Maybe grab a little bit of strength from the pelvic floor and imagine you're working all the way up your spine and then move from the heart. Little, tiny, controlled circle. Watch for pressing into feet. Watch for pressing into knees and hips. So we're trying to pull up and lengthen through the spine and take a circle. Tiny, tiny, tiny controlled. And then back in the other direction. Think about not rolling through vertebrae or joints. Think about connecting to muscles. Slow cleansing breath. And then bring your spine back to neutral and think about our throat. So bring your hands together, make them nice and warm, and bring them onto your throat and just feel warmth here. Think about warmth going all the way to the back of your throat, making space for your breath, making space for your voice. Maybe even thinking about releasing things that we've said that we've regretted and all that gripping that happens in our throat. Maybe think about releasing things that we wish we'd said that we hadn't, and releasing that gripping in our throat. Think about every dust particle you've ever breathed in and think about releasing and softening and cleansing that out of your throat. And then we're going to think about moving our head. So important, when we move with our neck, we're not doing head flips. We're not in an 80s band. We're not doing anything crazy and out of control. We're trying to have mind-body connection and sensation. So we're trying to feel what's present in the neck. So we're going to take a head left and right. Nice and slow. So a U shape with your head. Noticing what is present. Just trying to keep the shoulders soft but still. And starting to really feel what. So notice where your ear stops on one side. Notice what seems to be holding it in that place. Checking in, feeling your own holding patterns in your neck. And then thinking about as you bring your chin down towards the chest, you're squeezing and compressing the throat. And as you lift your chin up, you're opening. So think about now, just think about not only connecting with the muscles in the neck, but squeezing and compressing and cleansing the throat. And then bring the head slowly back to neutral. Take a little bit bigger movements with the spine. Rainbow breath. Inhale, arms up. Exhale, lower the right hand, lengthen the left side. Inhale up, lower left hand, lengthen right. So think about getting long on one side rather than the shoulder over to the ground. So press the arm up, 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 long. Open rainbow. Inhale up. Exhale, open the rainbow. Bring it back to neutral. And we made it. Take a couple of breaths and notice what is different from when we started. Feel your physical body. Feel how you feel mentally. Maybe you notice some emotions present that were not present when we started. Take a physical, mental, emotional check-in. And then decide where you would like to be for your resting pose. So traditionally, our resting for our yoga practice is taken on our back, fully straight on your back, laying flat, in a corpse pose. Try to think of the meaning of the poses rather than what somebody else has defined as perfect. So the meaning of corpse pose is to get as close to being a corpse as possible. That means as close to completely soft, no muscle tension, no control, no controlling of the thoughts, no controlling of the breath, no controlling of the muscles, everything soft. Just as if you were a corpse, not controlling anything. So wherever that position is for you, maybe you need props. If you need props and your body tells you you need props and you don't reach for props, have a little conversation with yourself. This is a moment to have a look within. Do you struggle with asking for assistance? Do you struggle with accepting assistance? These are the moments for inquiry. Yoga is about self-inquiry. It is about getting to know yourself. These are the moments of yoga. So find that position for you. Find your resting pose. And we moved slow and gentle, pretty much from the top of the head to the tips of the toes today. So as you're starting to land, maybe you're bringing some blankets, maybe you're getting super comfortable. Start to think about every muscle in your body having been touched and moved, having fresh energy, having more circulation. Maybe you just think about it as more blood flow to the tips of your fingers, to the tips of your toes. Maybe even more blood flow to the face. And maybe giving some squeezing to the muscle, giving a little squeeze to the muscles of the face. Really connecting to the muscles of the face. Taking a deep breath in and then really softening the muscles of the face. Really making sure we softened our face. Check in on the fingers and the palms of the hands. See if you've softened the palms of the hands. Take a few breaths, noticing your breath. Noticing perhaps you're still controlling the breath a little. And then start to release control of even your breath. Softening into the ground, loosening. Letting this ground carry you and support you. Letting your body rest and reset. So we can think about spring cleaning for the body, being able to get to that point where fight or flight is completely turned off and rest and digest begins. So maybe you're starting to hear some gurgles and rumbles in the stomach as your body starts to soften. Celebrate the magic of your body. Celebrate the magic of digesting, resting. Maybe with each wave of the breath, without control, just watching the breath wave in, roll and roll out. Imagine that each breath is just gently bringing in a wave of softness and sweeping away what's no longer needed. So notice if you have any places that still seem to be a little grippy. And maybe you bring your focus here. If you have no places that are grippy and you're completely soft, just imagine the wave coming in all the way the toes, touching every single cell of your body, and then sweeping out. Perhaps even connecting to being softer, more supported with each breath. The bones are getting supported. The muscles are taking a break. The bones are being carried by the ground below us. Softer, softer, softer with each breath. And then notice if the mind pulls you away. It's the mind's job. The mind's job is to run around. When it does, when you find yourself off your mat, when you find yourself out of your practice, take another body scan. So oftentimes our mind pulls us away and the physical body starts to respond by bringing back intention. The mind is busy, so the body gets ready to be busy. Notice this time. This is a magical time to notice. So when the mind just pulls you away and you can find that space where the body is starting to bring its attention to, you can start to notice the places you commonly hold your attention. And you can start to connect to those spaces more quickly when you are starting to get stressed. So notice when the mind pulls you away. Gently bring your awareness back to your physical body and scanning, looking for any places of attention in your body. And whatever your practice is to help you bring softness back to this space, maybe you imagine sending fresh energy down, softening, spreading, loosening. And then just gently begin again, over and over. Every time the mind pulls you off the mat, start over. Loosening, softening, living on the mat. If you have the time to spend in your resting pose, please take as much time as you need. Practicing, noticing when your mind leaves the mat and gently drawing it back. If you need to finish up at the 60-minute mark, you're going to slowly bring some gentle movements to the fingers and the toes. And make your way over to a fetal position, curling up in a little ball. Taking a moment to imagine shedding all the other layers. So shed the physical layer, shed the mental layer, shed all the other layers of your existence and check in, connect within to the internal layer, the bliss layer. And if you have a mantra that you repeat that helps you get here, or a little prayer, or some kind of spiritual practice, take a moment to soften and repeat in, imagining connecting into your spiritual center. Whatever that spiritual center practice may be. Connect to your own spiritual center and then imagine connecting your spiritual center out into the world, out into something bigger than you. So maybe you have something that you already believe in, a spiritual belief system. Go ahead, connect to your own spiritual belief system. If you struggle with connecting to something bigger than yourself, something greater than yourself, you can struggle with this concept of omnipresent energy, think about the connection you have to some place in nature where you have been, where it felt like a magical whole body experience, where you stopped everything you were doing and were completely absorbed. For me, sunsets. I think of so many beach sunsets where time just stopped and I just took in. It didn't matter what else was going on. The sunset was the only thing in my experience at that time. That was my soul, my spiritual self, connecting to something outside of myself. And that's the kind of connection we're thinking of. So maybe you just bring to mind one of those beautiful experiences that you have. Take a moment to connect within. We are a whole human experience. We are not just this physical body. We are not just the thoughts. We are not just the energetic and emotional layers. We are something more. There's something inside that connects all of these pieces. That spiritual part of us. So take a moment to connect within. And then trying to keep that connection, trying not to pull yourself away too soon. Come on up to a seated position and bring your hands to prayer heart space, honoring this spiritual part of yourself. And then imagine this sensation, this feeling, this experience, maybe the sunset feeling that you have. Imagine expanding it out, giving it out, sharing this sensation. And noticing that when in sharing this sensation, it seems to increase in value and strength. Sending out this connection. This whole body compassionate sensation and unconditional love. May all beings be peaceful and at ease. Thanks so much for joining me.